Okay, so part two, and I'm going to start with the French press because it's easy. Um, what we have here is a electric tea kettle, okay? And the very first step is I'm just going to pour some water, like I said, my filtered water, see part one, into it. I'm just going to put a whole bunch in right now, and I'll measure it out later. Now you'll notice this has been in my fridge. You can see the temperature is dropping drastically. I'm going to be honest, I love this tea kettle, but a lot of people are not going to be willing to spend the money on it, and the great news is you don't need to. You could use a very old kettle on a stove, put it on top of a stovetop burner, it'll work just as fine. I like this one because sometimes, I'm running around in the morning getting ready or whatnot. I don't want to have to worry about the temperature cooling down too low too quickly. This thing is great because it tells me a temperature and it'll let me set something at a temperature. So right now, for example, I'm going to set it to 205 and I'm going to hit start. And this is great because it'll go right up to 205 degrees and it won't warm it up any higher than that. But you know what? You don't need to get something that sophisticated. I just like it. It saves me a lot of time and hassle. It's convenient, but it doesn't do anything else for you. If you get like a $10 electric tea kettle from Walmart or some other store, that'll do just as good of a job. All you need is something that can get the water up to boiling. While I'm waiting for it might take a little while since I put so much water in to get it warmed up. I'm going to come right back in a moment and I'm going to show you the next few steps into making coffee in a French press. Alright, be right back. Okay, so as you can see, we're almost up to the 205. And what I'm going to go ahead and do right now, I'm going to do a couple things that I'm going to tell you straight off the bat are completely a matter of preference, and you should not feel like they're required. The first thing I'm going to do once this reaches my desired temperature is I'm going to do something called preheating the press, okay? And like I said, some people think this is important, other people don't. It really gets down to a question of philosophy. How particular are you? It's arguable about if it's important or not to do this, but the idea is that if you put water in there in a cold press, it'll bring down the temperature really quickly, and you won't have the optimum brew temperature. Now, I think it's an argument that makes a lot of sense. I'm also not sure how well developed most people's taste buds would be to notice such a small distinction. And there we go. For the sake of trying to do everything as well as I can, though, I'm going to go ahead and preheat the press. I'm not going to measure out anything specifically. I'm just going to put a little bit of water in the bottom. Maybe about that much. I'll just leave it alone. I'll get this thing back to where I was going here. Just get that on. And now I'm going to measure out the amount of coffee I want. Now, for a French press, you'll see this burr grinder has some settings on it. Has really fine all the way up here and very coarse all the way up here. For French press, I'm going to want something in the coarse range, and I personally find sort of pretty coarse to be effective with this one. Okay, that's my water kettle. You might want to play around with this. Okay, these things aren't set in stone. You may want to see how consistent your grind is, and you might want to play around with it and maybe make it a little bit more fine or a little bit more coarse and give it a try. Experiment some, find what works for you. I like it right about there. And I'm going to go ahead and put in, again, trying to do this one-handed, probably a stupid idea. And I'm going to go ahead and put in just enough for one brew. You might, if you were doing like a lot of coffee brewing, or if I had already been making this type of coffee before I got it in the mail, obviously this would not be, empty. But just put a little bit more in. I'm going to go ahead and grind that. And actually, while I'm going to let that grind, I'll get it started here, but I need to go get a cup for this. So Let me get this grinding, and then we'll be right back. Alright? Okay. Alright. Almost done grinding. We're back. Now, I imagine a question on a lot of your minds right now is, okay, how do I know how much to grind? And, how do I know, how coarse it should be? And where do I get a grinder like this? Or do I need a grinder like this? Let me answer a couple of those questions right off the bat. Do you need a grinder like this? No. You don't need one. Do you even need to grind your coffee? Well, you don't need to, but it's very recommended. For the same reason you don't want to get a coffee that is over 2 weeks past its roast date. You don't want coffee that's been ground for who even knows how long. Okay, see, coffee loses a lot of its freshness pretty quickly. Once it becomes exposed to air, it starts immediately losing a lot of that beautiful flavor profile that it's built up. So, you really want to grind your coffee right before you're ready to make it, okay? As you see here, I waited until I had hot water and I was preheating to even start worrying about grinding it. You don't want something that's been ground like half a day ago, okay? Try to grind it as close to your brewing as possible. That's going to give you the best flavor results, okay? How much to grind? The rule of thumb is, generally speaking, 2 tablespoons for every 6 fluid ounces. Yes, I know I'm speaking in imperial here. Those of you that are on the metric system, i.e. most of the world, I'm sorry. I'm going to ask you to do the conversion because I was educated very poorly on the metric system. It's perhaps one of the flaws of being surrounded by 2 oceans. Here in the United States, we just, don't get exposure to some of those other things like the metric system. I know the imperial system, and I can tell you, you're going to want about 2 tablespoons of this, okay, for every 6 fluid ounces. Okay, so I'm brewing a 12-ounce cup. You see there, I've got my mug. I'm going to be putting 12 ounces in it, so math would tell us I'm wanting 4 tablespoons of this. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this water I've had preheating. I'm just going to pour it right into my cup, okay? That's going to warm my cup up. It's the same idea, okay? Coffee is a very versatile and very sort of fragile substance. Okay, it can lose a lot. There we go. It can lose a lot. I really gotta stop making these things on iPhones. It can lose a lot of its flavor very quickly by cooling down. So, hang on just a second. I'm gonna clearly have to be right back after I empty this into the French press. Because this two-handed thing... Okay, it's just so clear I need a camcorder. iPhone has got to go. But give me a second, I'll be right back. So, as you can see there, I emptied the contents of this into there. Some people get very fanatical, and they will actually weigh out on like a scale how many coffee beans they're going to use. I just haven't gotten to that point yet. I'm perfectly happy using a tablespoon. But if you want to get into it, I mean, there are plenty of people who will weigh out their coffee. They'll measure out the whole beans, weigh it out on a scale, and then they'll, use that. It provides consistent results, and it might be something you want to do. But at any rate, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take my hot water here, and the ideal range usually is going to be about, say, 200 degrees to maybe 205. Not really any hotter than that. Okay, so you can see here, I have moved it to the metric side. Alright, that is the equivalent of 12 ounces right there, just a little, right around 350 milliliters. Okay, I've got 12 ounces, and I'm going to pour it into the French press, just like so, pretty gently, just trying to saturate all of the grounds. You don't have to dump it in there, but you don't have to baby it. And voila. I'm going to let this set for 1 minute. Okay, so starting right now, I'm going to let this set for 1 minute, and then I'm going to stir it. Now, I was kind of an idiot. I didn't bring in like a stir stick with me. I'm just going to use the end of this. I'm just going to sort of break. You can see right here. Let me just turn this a little bit. Coffee that is fresh, you should see a pretty distinct difference.